When last we left Bob, he was in a desperate situation. He was recently sober. He had anointed his ex-girlfriend as his higher power without her knowing, and had been spending the last month at her house training for his new job. But things are starting to look dire. As Bob is reaching the end of his online training for his new job, he no longer has a reason to go to Sarah's house any longer. Will Bob ever see Sarah again? Can Bob find a reason to keep visiting her without looking like a stalker? Will they ever work it out and live happily ever after? Well, unless you stumbled onto this blog by accident, you already know the answers to all those. But keep reading anyhow. You might learn something. The third month of my sobriety was kind of a blur. A lot of stuff happened. It was the end of summer, COVID was still rampant, and I was starting my new job. But really, the only thing I was focusing on was trying to figure out ways to keep seeing Sarah. Turns out, I didn't have to try very hard, because one night while we were talking on the phone, she asked me if I could paint something for her cousin's husband, Edgar. Side note, I love to paint. I've done a ton of murals throughout my life. It's super relaxing. Back to the finale. Edgar's birthday was at the end of the month, and Sarah wanted me to design and paint a huge wooden Star Wars cutout that people could poke their faces through, like carnivals and stuff, you know? And I told her that would be easy. So that's how it started. Every night for 2 weeks, I was at the house, and Sarah and I worked together creating this giant cutout. Truthfully, the whole thing probably would have taken me a day, but I was really milking it so I could keep hanging out with her. We finished the Star Wars cutout, and she was going to debut it at Edgar's birthday that Saturday. It was September 19th, 2020, 2 days before I would be 3 months sober. Sarah asked me to go with her to the party, and there was absolutely no part of me that felt like going. There was going to be a ton of drinking at the party, and for all I knew, Sarah's whole family hated me now. But I had to see this to the end. The party was pretty much as I expected. Ton of drunk people repeating themselves, yelling, falling all over the place. It was a party. I'm not looking down on them. That's what people do. But it did make me think about how I must have looked when I was drinking. And all night, especially after the alcohol started permeating, Sarah was basically at a family press conference. Why is Bob here tonight? Are you and Bob getting back together? Is Bob really the greatest lover the world has ever known? Well, that last question might not have happened, but you get the gist. And all night, Sarah kept insisting, no, we're just friends. He only came here tonight because him and I painted that cutout. Here's something else. Sarah barely drinks, but she was drinking that night. And I just politely stood behind her, trying to laugh at everyone's jokes, looking awkward. And I felt so damn out of place. These people didn't understand why I was there. Hell, odds are half of them hated me. As the night went on, I began to see what a mistake I had made. She was hanging out with her family, and I wasn't a part of that life anymore. I had become obsessed with this idea of trying to become this new person for Sarah and to work things out and making her my higher power in my own mind. But she never asked me to do any of that. She was really just looking at me as her close friend and getting on with her life. And I was just in the background watching. We left the party. Sarah was drunk, and I was driving us home. She was talking about how fun the party was, and she was so glad we were still friends. I hate the fact that somewhere in the back of my mind, I was calculating what liquor store was still open after midnight in that area. Not sure if I was seriously thinking about it, but it turns out I'll never get the chance to know. We got back to her house. I helped her get upstairs. She was about to go to bed, and I was going to leave. She hugged me, thanked me again for going with her, told me she had fun. In my mind, I was reevaluating things. Then the hug kind of lingered for about a second longer than normal. And then, even longer. Then, I realized we were just standing in our old bedroom, hugging each other. Not talking, just standing there. And for about 5 seconds, I absolutely had no idea what was going to happen next. And suddenly, I understood Einstein's theory of relativity. because this was the longest 5 seconds of my life. Then Sarah pulled away from me, put her forehead against mine, laughed a little Sarah laugh, looked up, and then she kissed me. And instantly I realized this wasn't a mistake. This was far from a mistake. This was the smartest thing I had ever done. She pulled away after a few seconds, and I could tell she was nervous. She laughed a little, and then the first thing she said was, "This doesn't change anything. We're still not getting back together." Then I stared at her, and I said the only thing that was going through my mind, the only thing I was possibly feeling at that moment, "Sarah, I just want you to be happy, even if it's not with me. And if me being here is complicating that, let me know, and I swear to God I'll leave. Just let me know." That was the exact second I figured out what love was. I wanted her to be happy. I wanted her to be happy more than I wanted myself to be happy. I was fully prepared at that moment to walk out of that house and never see her again, if that's what she would have wanted. Not because I wanted to, but because I loved her. I loved her more than I loved myself. I finally understood what that meant. She smiled her most Sarah smile ever, kissed me one time gently again, then said the greatest sentence I've ever heard up to that point. "I'll see you tomorrow, Bob." I smiled and nodded, hugged her one more time. Then I got into my car, and I went back to my parents' house, blasting 90s music on the radio as loud as I could possibly play it. The rest of that year was kind of anticlimactic. I ended up loving that job, and it turns out I was amazing at it. Yeah, go figure. 20 years of drinking makes you really good at sales, and I started making more money than I've ever made in my life. I was able to give Sarah and the kids the best Christmas ever, and it didn't take long for everyone to embrace Sober Bob. The new year came and went, we spent it together, and Sarah silently stopped talking to that other guy, as I did that other girl. Truthfully, though, I was never seriously considering anyone else. It was Sarah. It's always been Sarah. On February 12th, 2021, almost 8 months sober, we finally made it official that we were back together again, and I moved back into our old house. That November, I asked her to marry me. I never thought I'd be married. I expected to die never having been a husband, or a father for that matter. But that's the value of sobriety. That's the high that replaces the drunk, the unexpectedness. I truly don't know what is going to happen next, good or bad. And I can tell you, that uncertainty is a much bigger rush than the first sip of vodka after work. I have a family. I have a career. I'm a father. People are counting on me, and for the first time in my life, I'm not letting them down. And that's the point. For the new people that are reading this, to the people on Reddit asking how to get through the first 3 months, I offer you this. Stop doing it for you. Do it for the people who give a damn if you're still around. Do it for your kids, your parents, your wife, your husband. Hell, do it so you could prove someone wrong who thought you couldn't do it. I don't really care what car you take. Just get to the party. So that was the story of my first 3 months. And there's a reason that I tackled this today, because something really cool happens this Saturday. This Saturday will be June 21st, 2025, and it will be the day that I officially celebrate 5 years of being sober. And believe me when I tell you, that's crazy to me. I never thought I'd be sober in my life, let alone celebrate half a decade. And I'll tell you right now, there's no way in hell I could have done it on my own, because the first couple months you start kind of trying to figure out who you are. And I didn't even like myself very much. A lot of alcoholics don't. And then when you don't like yourself very much, then you're forced to be alone with yourself now. It's like being locked in a car with somebody you don't get along with. That's why I did it for them. And that's why I encourage people to find somebody to do it for. Eventually, you'll start to like yourself. That'll come later, but initially, it's kind of hard. But I'll tell you right now, here's the secret. Right now, there's somebody out there, and they're waiting for you. They're waiting for you to become the version that you were supposed to be, the person you're supposed to be all along. Could be a girl, a guy, your kids, your parents. Somebody is waiting for you to be the best version of yourself. And they're waiting because they love you. And the crazy part is, you might not even know that person yet. Maybe you haven't even met them. But trust me, they're out there and they're waiting for you to get sober. Do it for them. I want to thank Sarah and Blur and Pumpkin and Jen and Tyler and Jake and all the other people who helped me get to this 5-year mark. Because I promise, I know in my heart of hearts, those first 3 months, there's no way in hell it would have turned into 5 years without you guys. Thanks for listening to my channel. Please subscribe, keep listening. I'll keep making more videos. And I want to say a special thank you to Sarah for never giving up on me. I couldn't have done it without you.